I think just like that, we're doing this morning. Good morning, accelerators. Happy to be here again. I always tell you about the weather, so I might as well start out that way as well. And I think I'm actually running like 30 seconds early today, so crazy. Thanks again for submitting all these questions. And it's a little bit rainy, but I'm enjoying the summer here in fantastic Detroit area. And with that, let's get right into it. So Trent asks, how can I get more traffic to my website? Says, I'm asking this question because I'm using email marketing to prospect potential clients for my work in commercial real estate. I send about 70 emails a day to dentists in my area, and then depending on who has opened the email and visited the site, I follow up with a call. I'd like to learn how I can direct more dentists to my site using Google, Facebook, and other tools. Certainly, always when people ask questions, it makes me think of questions, and I'm just curious in commercial real estate, why just dentists? But that is an interesting niche. And so, from that perspective, I guess your question more traffic other than your email marketing. Trent, I would say certainly search engine optimization. What you want to do though is optimize for what it is they're going to be searching for. So, are they looking for new office space? Are they looking for things down those areas? If you are really just trying to focus solely on dentists, maybe you go all the way down a dentist resource type of page and SEO strategy. It really just depends. SEM, search engine marketing, advertising on Google for keywords. That works really well as well. But again, what is it they're searching for? So those are the words you want to buy and make the ads and the landing pages relevant to those words. Another good idea would be, Facebook or LinkedIn advertising by occupation, and then obviously it sounds like area as well, since you're in real estate, where you would, target ads based on what people say they do for a living, or maybe where they went to school. Dental schools would be something they might associate with their profile or things along those lines. Vanessa's up next. Vanessa says, what platforms besides Instagram and Facebook do you suggest for sponsored ads? And the background here is, I've been setting up my funnels for about a month, creating videos, email nurturing sequences, the works, all in an attempt to automate the sale of my high-ticket item. I was ready to launch my first sponsored ad on Saturday, and on Thursday I got a notification that my ads account had been disabled. That was disheartening to say the least. Crazy and demotivating. I put in the request for a review, but 4 days later, no responses. Since then, I've tried to come up with other ways to market, like organic content marketing, but that takes so much longer, and now I have to create so much more content, not to mention that it gets me fans more than customers. Google Ads is my next stop, but I wouldn't even know where to start since in the last few months, I've been learning all the ins and outs of Facebook and completely left Google to the side. Help! Okay, Vanessa, so let's start with, do you know why your account was disabled? I did try to guess what it is you do. You didn't give me much of a background here. Looking at your website, and I'm not sure, but it's very possible that the service you're offering is not one that they allow you to advertise on. So the flip of that is, a lot of times what you're not allowed to advertise on Facebook or Instagram, you're also not allowed to advertise on Google. They don't always align this way, and sometimes Google has different rules than Facebook. It can be very frustrating in a lot of aspects, because I do internet marketing for a living, and it's like, why could we not advertise this? This makes no sense. This would be great for customers. Sometimes it's because they see more fraud in these areas, or get-rich-quick type schemes, or things along these lines that they're trying to protect their customers with. But so I guess the first real question is, why are they not allowing you? And if you go look through other policies and things and find that they don't allow you, they're not going to re-enable you. They're going to cut you off within days once they figure it out. So at that point, don't spend too much time there. If you do find your service is allowed on them, then certainly the appeal process or setting up a new account could go a long way. And then obviously Google would be a good way to go for people that are actually Googling for these types of things, if your service is allowed. Let's assume it's not, and then I guess my question would be, you got to think outside your box. So how do you bring in people that you are actively looking, that would actively be looking for what it is you do? So if you can't just buy ads down certain keywords or down certain paths, what's another way to reach? I might suggest, and I guess that's what you meant by content, organic content marketing, but the viral video concept, or building followings in Instagram, building followings in Facebook, building followings in TikTok, down those paths, and having those people, eventually get them into the funnel. So, maybe a 5-to-1 content ratio where, 5 pieces are interesting, helpful, people like to see them, they follow them, etc. And then the one has more of a sales pitch at the end of it type of thing. Click here for more, learn more about this. In the comment section, here's this, that type of thing. So I would certainly try to go down more of those paths. Just in general, building a network can be a good way for a service like yours to try to grow as well. I know it's not fun as quick as try the advertising path down these areas. I'm also not sure if you're online only or if you're in person only, so how that relates to you physically. If you're trying to get just local people, then there's local networking groups and things along those lines that you could be doing as well. The internet, as much as I love it, doesn't have to be the only way to grow a small business, without a doubt. So good luck with getting that undisabled, and good luck growing your business. Kristen asks, what can I do to bring in revenue when my clients are canceling due to the economy? My coaching business has a high retention rate, and clients normally work with us for 12 to 18 months or more. In fact, in the last 6 weeks, we lost a lot of clients, citing the economy as the reason. I'm losing more clients than I lost even at the start of the pandemic. So this is obviously very challenging, frustrating. I'm very sorry to hear it. I guess the unfortunate but very short answer would be you either need to offer more value or better show the value you're offering. I know in a lot of our case we joke about it, but our goal as our internet marketing firm is to generate leads for our clients. That's our goal. That's our number 1 thing. Our number 2 thing is to tell them about the leads we generated for them and report on them. Our number 3 thing is to tell them about the leads we did and report on them again. And our number 4 thing is to tell them about the leads we got them and report on them again, because clients don't understand the value even when it slaps them in the face. It's kind of funny how that works. So if there's a better way for you to explain or show the value, maybe be proactive. Maybe there's ways to look at the numbers, and say, look, a year ago you were here, now you're here, now you're here. But I would say the bad economy, if anything, should mean they need your help more. I know they may not feel like they can afford it, but the flip side of that is the alternative without help, where are they going to be with the bad economy? So they need to change their mindset, and maybe through some of those coaching sessions you're having, you can explain that to them, not planting the seed that they don't necessarily need you or don't want to work with you, but that they the value that the challenge that the new economy is going to bring, and maybe the questioning through that coaching session could bring up a lot of that more ahead of time to proactively go, remove that as a concern or an active barrier. The other one that reading this kind of popped into my head as just a concept might be, is there a way to bundle more services into your value offering? So if you're doing just coaching today, and part of your coaching strategy is, hey, we need to be doing more advertising, or you need to be doing more whatever that is. If you can bundle that service in with another company so that its combined value can be added in, and the additional help you're providing with that value, that could go a long way, potentially as well, to show the value to your customers. Little coffee break here, and then we'll get to Carrington. Carrington. So Carrington asks, how can I make a loyalty program effective for my business? Background here is I own a photography agency focusing on unique and creative product imaging for clients to use digitally to increase online sales. I've been unsuccessful over the past year or so to figure out a subscription model that would help bring in more clients' revenue on a retainer or additional monthly income basis. I was wondering if a loyalty program where people can earn points and get rewards to excite them and spark more reoccurring bookings. I would like to hear your ideas on how a loyalty program would be good for my business, or what other options you could look at in order for me to create a retainer client as opposed to one-off bookings. Thanks so much. So the unfortunate part, I think, about the way you've described your business is yours is truly one of those services that people need when they need it. Um, it's not necessarily one of those like I'm going to go because I get my free coffee on my 10th visit type of concept. So the other alternative here too is this being a B2B space is in general most of the time B2B loyalty programs really don't work. Businesses need your services when they need your services, and the buyer of your program is not going to buy more if they don't need it because their name is still in the line, if that makes any sense. So it might be a nice ad for the person that is the buyer of your services. Oh, wow, look, I get this. But at the end of the day, we have a couple of vendors that do have loyalty programs that, of course, we participate in because it's an added value. But it's not as though I would stay with that vendor ever because of that loyalty program. I didn't choose the vendor because of the loyalty program. If whatever is best for my clients is what I would always do. So the loyalty program is probably just a waste of their energy in that particular space. So the bigger question is, how do you, like you said, try to get more reoccurring revenue out of what it is you're doing? And I think you might really be onto something with this subscription-based model. The idea that, okay, so last month I took 100 product photos of your stuff, and then for the next 3 months you don't need any. Could we do 25 a month, every month, so it'd be easier for your workload, Mr. Client, as you get them on your website and you use them better and whatever else, and it'd be easier on my workload. And for that, it'll actually be less cost for you, and I can better allocate my time and understand how cash flow is going to flow, and you can better allocate your cash flow and your time. So if you can come up with some kind of partnership like that, it's not going to be a very canned solution. I don't see how any, you can say one size fits all type approach because every client's going to have a different need base. But I do think it's a good idea and certainly is worth pursuing. I would say even your good clients, you could even ask that type of question. Would it be a lot easier for you to budget if even if you only take the pictures once or twice a year, and let's just assume that let's use easy math. Let's say it's $1,200 for a photography session. So, Mr. Client, it's $1,200 once you pay me. If you give me $100 a month for all 12 months, I'll take those pictures the one time whenever you need them. It helps me spread out my cash flow. Helps you spread out your cash flow. There might be an opportunity there as well to get them bought into some version of at least reoccurring revenue over a longer stream. But I think the concept of every month or something along those lines works better. I also think of the question you ask two below here that I'll get to. It could be a really good opportunity for you to get more into reoccurring revenue and still do the photography thing. So when we get to that one, let's talk more about that then. In the meantime, Robin says, how would you respond to a prospect who says they do not have wall space for more art? And the background here is, as an artist working on location, this is often my response when a client sees and loves my art. With that, I started creating tiny drawings for tiny spaces. Thoughts? How would you overcome the objection? So I think you flip the script. I think you explain that, hey, walls need to change. They only need to like your work more than their least favorite other piece of artwork to make space. So if that's truly what their objection is, and they're just not trying to be polite, then that's what you say. Well, how long has that piece been here? Do you still like that one? Would you like something like this better than that? I think I'd go down that path. Or then maybe the next piece, tongue-in-cheek, when they say that as well, it's time to buy a bigger house then. You could always go down that path too. At the end of the day, it's going to be a tough spot if there are people out there that like to change their walls and their environments all the time and don't care at all about a cost. And then there are some that I set it this way and I'm happy with it and I don't want this to be some kind of reoccurring thing. I just wanted to decorate once and be done with it. And trying to overcome it beyond those two strategies, I think, can just be challenging. So now we're going to get back to Carrington. And Carrington says, how would you try to sell multiple services to the same client? Says, I own a photography agency focused on creating unique and creative product imagery for clients to use digitally and increase online sales. Even Though product photography is my core business, I see clients who also need and want content strategy help as well. This could be good for my business to add this fee to my services and deepen the relationship with them. How would you approach selling them as strategy sessions as well as product photography without losing on the photography revenue? I don't want to lose on that revenue, but I see the need for strategy. I think you hit on a great point, but just be honest and tell them what you see. Um, if the opportunity and content strategy can help them, offer to help them with it. I don't see this being too much of a conflict. I think it's probably more of a barrier in your head. I wouldn't say that, not everybody can do photography and not everybody can do content strategy, but, it's not like you're also trying to, make the breakfast every morning and drive their kids to school. So I don't think this is too far of a stretch for you to say, hey, what I noticed what you're doing. I really have some strategies and ideas here. I'd like to try to, sell you some coaching, consulting services, or even some monthly services where I can do this strategy for you, in addition to taking the pictures. If nothing else, especially if you're going to implement the strategy as well, this would actually be like more of an all-in-one solution. If the products need to be on here anyway, and I can help implement them there, I can do both for you. So I certainly would approach that any of the clients that think make sense, and I think they'll see the value there, not see it as, well, and now I don't need you for photography. Even if they don't want the strategy, they're still going to need photography, and if they like working with you, they're still going to want you for photography. Okay, next question is Brad. Brad asks, how do you know when the time is right to leave your full-time job and go all in on your business? He says, I'm currently a full-time firefighter and paramedic for a local municipality and have 13 years of service invested with 12 more for retirement. The climate has changed dramatically, and although I never dreamed I would even consider leaving the fire service, I find myself struggling for a reason to stay. My business has been growing slowly over the last several years, but it's still not the point where I feel comfortable leaving the guaranteed income of the fire job. However, I'm totally burned out and ready to leave. It's the fear that's holding me back and the lure of guaranteed income and benefits that keeps me there. How do I know when it's the right time and when I should make the leap? Never's the right time, or the right time is now. So yeah, this is the really tough space that all entrepreneurs find themselves in, or most entrepreneurs find themselves in. I think at the end of the day, you only live once, and so I look at it as you really want to do what makes you happy. And if I could be poor and be happy, or rich but completely hate what I'm doing, I'd rather be poor and love what I'm doing. So I think that's the way to look at it. If you're that frustrated with your current job, I kind of tell you the time's now. Now all that said, I'd love to tell you how great I was at when I did what I did, but I was already doing internet marketing, and I was working with a former guy, and together that relationship just didn't work out well. So I had to cut the cord and say, you know what, I'm going to keep doing internet marketing, but I'm going to do it under my own umbrella now. And so that was tough. And for 3 months, I used every piece of revenue that came in to pay the people I hired immediately to help me grow and scale my business. And so I lived off of credit cards and racked up a lot of debt. But it was well worth it. And I was happy and excited doing it. It was scary, but I was happy and excited doing it. I'll also kind of give you one more little tidbit. And that was, I remember way back when, one of the first business books I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talked about basically his definition of being independently wealthy. And the concept there was, if you're independently wealthy if your assets cover your cost of living. And so a lot of people think of independently wealthy as being like uber rich, but just the opposite. It's harder to become independently wealthy the more your cost of living goes up. So if you think about it, I don't want to suggest going to be a homeless person or something, but if you're living on the street and you have no overhead costs, you're basically almost independently wealthy with just a couple dollars you get in here or there. And so you flip that a little bit, you're going, okay, I have a $400 apartment, and I have a very cheap car payment, and so I made just enough assets that I have $1,000 a month coming in. I'm now independently wealthy. Even though you'd be in the poverty level, you're still independently wealthy. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Once you get to that level, you can do whatever you want with your time. And so I would suggest as you make this leap of faith, before you go there, do your best to cut your costs and standard of living as much as you possibly can, so you're not just incurring debt. A lot of times we want that new toy, we bought this new this, we have this, I need the best this, whatever those things are, and we find ourselves, kind of trapped in, as he called it back in that book, like the rat race. You're kind of running and chasing the cheese, and you keep raising the bar. And it's human nature, unfortunately, as you get that raise, people think, well, you should save it more, but they don't. They go out and spend it more. They go get a nicer car. They get a bigger payment. They go get a nicer house with a bigger payment. Whatever that is, and then they find themselves in the exact same boat, but, whereas, when they were making $50,000 a year, they go, gosh, if I could just make 80. They're making 80, and they go, I just think I can make 100. And then all of a sudden they're making, $250,000 a year, which when they were younger would have said, oh my gosh, I could live forever on that, I have so much money. And they're just as broke as they were when they made $50,000 a year. So if you can keep your cost of living low, it's a heck of a lot easier to live and do the things you want to do, because you don't need as much money to be able to do it, and then you can scale that better and grow that better. I do kind of try to live the same basic way still. I try to take my money and put it into investments, not necessarily into costs, even now that things are rolling along. So hope that helps. But if you're that unhappy, I think there's no time like the present. And last, for all these great questions we had this morning, is Kelly. And Kelly says, what things would you do to recommend how to help me better manage my time? Kelco is an excavation company specializing in trenching, site prep, road work, aggregate hauling, and heavy equipment operations to include forestry, land clearing, and most earthwork operations. I'm looking for the most effective way to manage my daily tasks, business, family time, personal growth time, and me time. I have a daily, monthly planner, but I'm thinking there has to be a more effective way to manage my time. I feel like I should be more productive. Doesn't everybody? Hey, the kind of cool thing is we just got a client in your space. Very cool stuff. I think driving that equipment would be super fun. But back to your question, it does. You have a lot on your plate. Everybody does. I think you need to prioritize and schedule based on importance and importance to you. So importance may not always be, I need to take the bigger job. It might be, I need to take that 3-day weekend with my family. That's fine too. You're allowed to do that. You should do that. You're going to remember those things better in life than, oh yeah, I got that one more job cracked in. But we also want to grow and scale our businesses. And so I really, I wish I had all the answers here, but I use a personal schedule, and I prioritize, what should be important. And sometimes family, gets kicked to the curb a little bit, and sometimes the business gets kicked to the curb a little bit, and everything in between. I do find that it's easier for me to find personal growth time more and things along those lines actually during work hours than not, because I think the family time is a little more sacred to me, but it just depends on the person. Now, all that said, what I've learned is the best thing, or the best way to solve this, is buy more time. So the more you grow your business, the more you can afford to delegate tasks. The more you can afford to delegate tasks, the more time you can buy. I'll give a great example, but like probably the easiest thing for me to give up, even though I enjoyed doing it, was cutting the lawn. So the first time when I really got busy, and then I tried to go home and the lawn looked terrible and I felt bad about it, and then I finally figured out what I was worth it as an hourly rate versus what I'd pay somebody to cut my lawn and not have to think about it. I was like, that was the easiest decision I've ever made. And I look at those paths, can I outsource bookkeeping? Can I outsource this? In your case, can I hire somebody else to run that equipment today? I may not make as much money, but I'm buying time. And time is something we can never get back. We can always make more money. We can't ever make more time. So if you can afford to buy time, buy it. Buy it early, buy it often, buy as much of it as you can. And then you can fit a lot more into what you actually want to do that's going to be more productive or make you more happy. And I kind of heard a cool little tidbit that I think helps people, including myself, get off that little stumbling block sometimes, like, well, I'm the best at doing this, so I have to do this task. I can't have somebody else on my team do this task. And that tidbit was the 85% rule. If I could delegate this task to somebody else and they could do that 85% as good as how I could do that, would that be acceptable to me? And in my world, the answer is almost always 100% yes. because I can get my time back, and 85% as good as me is pretty darn good. So I don't have to be the perfectionist that gets it all done myself. I could say it's not going to be perfect, but it'll accomplish the same thing I need done, and I get my time back at the same time, and that's awesome to me. So go buy some time. Enjoy moving heavy equipment. Everybody, thank you for these great questions. I always enjoy answering them. And I guess we'll see you next month.